Awesome.
Okay, so let's start again. Hello, welcome to a Freethinker's Corner. We're coming to you live from the gallery at a Freethinker's Corner. We're going to get that started pretty soon, and I'm not going to go into that again. But anyways, welcome. We have Elana A Mugdan with us, the author of the Shadow War, I keep wanting to call it Dragon, but the Shadow War Sagas of books, book 4, coming out in April-ish, 2021. So let's go ahead, and we got a quick little treat for you here. So we'll throw up a little trailer of the books. So sit back for 30 seconds and watch.
Necrovar has returned. He intends to finish what he started.
There's more to your quest than you let on.
You will summon the dragon and command it to fight for us in the impending war. For I can assure you, war is now inevitable.
If you save that dragon, you will be a hero.
So of course, please pay no attention to the Amazon at the end. But there you go. There's a little 30-second teaser of book 1, Dragon Speaker, all 3 books. Book 4 will be available here as well. They're all available right now, except for the 4th book. And I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Elana. So real quick, if you do have a question or comment for Elana, I will pass that on to her, or I will even bring you, ask you to unmute or undo your video there, and you can ask it in person. So it looks like we already have. Do you want to do a start, or do you want to start with a question?
I mean, I could do a brief introduction, but I think Mary Lou and I already got to know each other a little bit, and I think based on these names, we probably all know each other. I think this is maybe, unless I'm very much mistaken, Lisa the beta reader, who has been in correspondence with me. If so, hi Lisa, thank you for your very kind correspondence. You always brighten my day when I see it. And so if that's truly the case, then we're all basically familiar. I'm Elana A Mugdan, Shadow War Saga, currently 3 books. Book 4 is coming out April 2021. So we hit all the major points. And I believe, I don't know about Lisa, but we're all kind of, writers and publishers, or in the writing community. So I think we're all pretty much on the same page. So if you want to just kind of dive right into it, I was telling Chris before, but I will reiterate it for you guys. This is not going to be a lecture type thing. I would love to do it more free form, and I'll just kind of expound on topics. And if and when you guys have any questions, just feel free to throw them out there. And while it's small, I think, I don't know about you, Chris, but we can certainly do a little screen share for people when they have questions.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and do that right now, because we've got Tim Baird. You know him.
Hey, Tim, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, I think we're muted.
Yep.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? All right, sorry about that. Hey, nice to see you guys again. How's it going?
Oh, I love the nerd wall behind you.
Oh, it's mostly a Star Wars theme, but there's draconian shenanigans over on this side, and then a turtle and a tank over here. So.
Well, there's a snake and a tank right over here, so.
Yeah.
We're in good company.
Good. So Chris, am I diving into my question?
You're diving into your question.
Absolutely.
So one is serious and one was kind of silly. So the real one is, how many hours a day do you write? Because I see your tweets that you put out there where you show your nominal target graph that you're supposed to achieve, and then you seem to always blow it out of the water and do many more words per day than you thought you were going to. So how do you maintain your writing schedule? Like, how structured is it? Do you just free form it? What do you do?
Cool. All right. This is also a kind of a layered question, because recently I have had to actually return to work full time. I'm a single mom to this unfortunately sick snake baby, so I gotta join the real world, get back in the rat race. However, the benefit of working at this particular place, I've been there for more years than I care to admit. So I'm very familiar with the work. I'm very familiar with the people there. And when there's a lot of work, there's a lot of work. But when it's slow, I am actually able to write during the days. So I don't know if I should be admitting this in a recording, but this novella, which I have just finished over the past 2 weeks, has been done predominantly at my place of work. So I have 8 hours in a day to kind of do all of the office work and then also get my stuff done. And somehow it's been working out, and I do a lot of it at lunch. So this particular novella has the benefit of, I know what happens in it. I know exactly what happens in it, because this is meant to be a bridge novella to be read as an auxiliary piece between books 3 and 4. So once you read Dragon Blood, you can dive into this novella before getting into book 4. And what this novella does is it details the 18 months of Elentrian occupation from Necrovar. So it focuses on the Elentrian side of things while Caria is overseas. So we follow the story of Fletcher, Roxanne, Ephrax, Seba. We see what happened, how they linked back up, got back together, what they did to try and unite Elentria and scrape together resistance against Necrovar. So again, if you're familiar with book 3, and I think most of you guys are, you will know Caria's half of the story, and in the end parts of Dragon Blood, this is kind of spoilery, but again, I think everybody kind of knows. When they link back up, you get a little hint of it, you get a little taste, but we don't go into it, into actually what happened to Fletcher, to Roxanne, and all of them in the book. Nor do we have time really to delve too deeply into it in book 4. So I always believed that this story really deserves to be told. And so I kind of did like a little outline. Back in the day, I had 2 chapters of this story, which were originally in book 3. But they were long chapters, and the book is not super short as it stands. So what I did is I cut them out, and I said, I'll revisit this later. So I based my outline loosely on those chapters, and I said, I want this to be 18 chapters, because it's 18 months. And I'm gonna just write a chapter a day. And that, to circle back to your original question regarding word count, that's my MO. I don't go by target. Like if I have, a word count, which I'll probably ignore in the end anyway, goal to reach, then what I'll do is I will just say, I'm gonna do X number of chapters, and I'm gonna finish 1 chapter per day. And however long that chapter ends up being, that's it. So if it's a shorter chapter, it'll usually be in like the 2,600, 2,900 range of words. If it's a longer chapter, and I've written some doozies, like when in the first draft of Dragon War, there were chapters that were like 6,000 words long. So, which have been edited down. They have been edited down in the beta reader version that is now out to people. But, for me, it's not so much a question of word count as it is, I have to get one thing done every day. And I don't know if that's super healthy or not, because it ends up putting some stress on me. But I do it. And, and obviously on the weekends, I have all the time in the world. I'm actually less productive on the weekends because I don't have like the deadline of the end of the workday looming over my head. Because what I want out of life is to like leave the office and not have to go home and do more thinking and more work. So I want to get it all done at the office. So it's not so much words for me, and you can see that clearly in terms of like I just completely ignore any word goals I set for myself. It's more about like, I just like, I want to reach a milestone every day. And previously, this was not necessarily something that I thought I was actually capable of. I was not really a very, what do you want to call it? A very disciplined writer. I would just kind of write whatever came to me at whatever time and like, la, 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 it doesn't matter. But now, of course, that I'm a published author and I'm on deadlines, unreasonable deadlines that I set for myself, but deadlines nonetheless, then it's kind of lit a fire under me. And I really like try to adhere to that. So I don't know, I hope that answered your question. It's a little, I understand I'm the exception and not the rule when it comes to these things. But it all kind of leads back to the main point, which is if you want to write, if you want to be a writer, you gotta carve out time to write every day. At least if you're working on something. You know, I don't necessarily always feel like if you're a writer, you have to write every day. That feels a little draconian, not dragon-esque, but harsh in that sense of the word. Because if you just don't have anything to write, then like, give yourself a break, you know, take a day off. It's not the end of the world. But if you are working on something and you have a deadline to strive toward, then for sure, you need to introduce discipline into your schedule. So actually something that has helped me a lot in terms of becoming more disciplined is the National Novel Writing Month website. And it's a free site. Anyone can use it. It's a little bizarre when you first get into it to like kind of find your way around. But that being said, you can set goals for yourself. You can create projects. You can set word count goals. And Tim, you mentioned my update posts on Twitter. So those screen caps are all what I get from the Nano website. And having that thing in my life that I feel like I'm accountable to this website now. Like, this is really an OCD thing, but I feel like if I don't update and write words today, then I lose my writing streak and I, you know, do this and I do that. So it's really like, it's made me accountable to more than just myself, which for me is important. And for any other writers out there, I super recommend it because it really actually, it helped me structure and become very disciplined. So that's my long-winded answer. Looks like we have Matt Fields here. Hi. Howdy. So Chris, I don't know if this is an issue, especially for your recording, but I'm not seeing my face on the main screen. Don't know if it matters.
I see you.
Oh, do you? Okay, maybe it's just
Yep.
me. Maybe it's better.
I think it's supposed to bring up whoever's talking is front and center. If you look up in the upper right, does this say view? And then like a little icon or something?
You enter full screen. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
so there's speaker view and there's gallery view.
I'm not, because hilariously, Chris knows this, but I don't think anyone else does. This is like the second Zoom meeting I've had since quarantine started. So I got away without having to do Zoom meetings for several months. But now that makes me a noob. So I'm not gonna click anything and potentially ruin what I'm doing right now, which seems to be working.
I think it's good. At least I have it set so that this main speaker comes up, but it's all good. It'll work.
And you're recording the screen?
I am recording it, yeah.
I'm not saying this because I want to see my face. I actually prefer not. Just letting you know for your recording that I'm not seeing it, but it's cool.
Okay.
All right, so welcome to Matt. And I think Tim mentioned that he had one other question. So if we want to do that, we can. If anyone else has a question, we can definitely get into those as well. I'm going to take a little sip of water from my dragon cup.
I brought you back up, Tim. Did you have another question?
Yeah, so I've been chatting. I didn't know if you wanted to utilize the group chat to talk while not interrupting people. Sorry, I live and die on meetings all day long at work. I'm often on 7 hours of video chats.
Oh my
so
God.
This is how we function. Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah.
No, my silly question was, if you were a magic thread, what type would you be and why?
Oh my God. It's actually hilarious that you bring this up because I recently found like a quiz site and I was like, you know, it'd be fun as if I made a what kind of magic thread are you but style quiz or some nonsense like that. And obviously I would be a veil thread. Like OP, dragon powers, clearly. But to be serious, because I feel like that's also maybe kind of like a cop-out answer. Because that's like, well, I would do everything. I'd be everything. I'd be a veil thread. If I'm being really serious about it, I don't know. I would probably be. My first instinct would be to say maybe like a fire thread. I'd be a fire wielder because I've always liked fire, and it can be very helpful or it can be very powerful, and it can also be destructive, and all of that appeals to me.
No, I found the way you do your stories is creative because a lot of times when you read fantasies that involve magic, you know, people just are able to do magic in general.
Yeah.
But I am an avid player of Magic the Gathering, where in that world you actually have people who specialize in water magic, earth magic, fire
Right.
magic, stuff like that. So it's neat that you have that element in your story where people and dragons and different mages can only do certain aspects of it. Some are crazy awesome and can do, you know, kind of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just kind of curious.
Cool, thank you.
So thanks for
I
coming.
thought about light magic. Light magic's pretty sick because I have actually made it OP, but that's because the dragons wield it, so it has to be. So, but it also makes sense when you think about it, because like, and I think you also appreciate this. Magic in this world is actually much more based on science than anything else. So it's a very, I won't say rigid, but it's a pretty structured hard magic system. And threads are really kind of a term for a section of molecules. Energy gets pulled from a wielder's source, gets converted into some kind of physical molecule that either can create an action in the world, manipulation, or create something new entirely, creation magic. So everything I know about, you know, actual subatomic physics, which admittedly is more of a, like, I can't do any math. I can't do any math about physics, but I really like the concepts. I like subatomic physics. I like learning about quarks and actual string theory, which is where I got the term thread from. And I like astrophysics. And now that we're getting into more and more into the exploration of veil magic and what it is and what it means to this world in the book, we're going to be able to delve into some more cool stuff. A little bit we see it in book 4, but really once we get into book 5, it's going to be, and I'm going to try to like ease up a little bit on the science because I feel like maybe people don't love it as much as I do, but at the same time, it's super cool. And the great thing about me being in charge of this world is that I don't actually have to know that much about how subatomic or astrophysics really work in the real world because I'm in charge. So if there's a loophole in whatever we as humans know about our universe and how it works, I could just fill the gaps with magic, veil magic. So that's pretty cool. I figure you would appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I like it because, you know, if magic is unlimited, it doesn't really feel real. But if you put it in a structured environment with actual limitations and then detail the character not being able to do something because their limit is holding them back from a certain thing, it just feels more real.
Right.
So yeah, I like having the structured kind of science-based element of your writing. So I try to do the same thing in mine because I want it to feel real. I want it to be fantasy, but I want the reader to think like this could actually happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you.
And previously we haven't really, we've always brushed upon the dangers of what could happen to a wielder if you expend too much energy. We got really into it in book 3. I came up actually with mathematical equations based again on real life, but in which I do not actually have to do or know about any real math. But the concept of actual conversion of energy, going between energy and mass, and how much energy one can expend if you actually took like a smidgen of mass and you were able to convert that entire tiny smidgen of mass into pure energy, it would be a phenomenal amount of energy. And we, in our world, can never accomplish that because there's always some byproduct. Like when you burn a candle, you're technically converting mass to energy, right? There's a little bit of heat that gets dispersed from the act of burning. And that is energy that's mass being converted into energy. That is what this byproduct of. But it's tiny, it's infinitesimal in comparison to like what it could be. I don't know if I'm making myself very clear on that point, but you know, like the wax doesn't get converted all into energy, the wax melts. And the wick doesn't get converted all into energy, the wick turns into smoke, it turns into dust particles, it turns into it gets melted into itself. So there's very little mass being actually converted. In the world of Solaris, you can convert the actual energy in your soul into mass, and you can convert mass to energy. And therefore they're capable of much greater feats than you sometimes see in other series. And that's kind of a trope in the use of magic and stories that we see, is like, there is always a cost to magic and it's very difficult to learn and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, I'm tired of that. I would rather magic be like a normal, natural life function that comes just as easily as a toddler learning to walk and speak and stuff like that. Like, obviously that's not super easy, but it's a natural life function, and everybody is capable of it. And if you're committed to it, you can become a very great wielder, capable of very great feats in not that much time. So obviously Caria is the exception because she has kind of a magical block in her soul, which we get into in book 3 and more in book 4. But to circle back to my original point, we have touched upon in previous books the cost of magic. And yes, there is always a cost. You're drawing the energy from yourself. So if you want to use magic to do work, that's the same as like doing work to complete any other physical task. If I want to lift this dragon cup, that is me burning energy in my body, converting it into work, and thus a task is completed. And that is a minimal amount of energy. But it's the same concept if I were an air wielder and I wanted to wield air to lift the cup. I'm still doing the same physical process in my body. I am still, I've ingested food and water and sunlight, presumably, and I'm well rested, one hopes. That's a joke, because I'm never well rested. But all of that, makes the human body functional, and then I have energy to spare to expend on completing this task. So it's the exact same concept, physical and magical energy expenditure. Obviously, magic costs a little more energy, and it's not really equivalent. You can accomplish much more with magic than you can physically, but there is a cost and there is a danger. And if you expend too much energy in your soul, in previous books they've always been like, oh, well, you can unravel and you could do this and you could do that and you can just like kill yourself by overexerting yourself. And it's just kind of been like this thing we didn't really see the dangers of it. We didn't really see the cost. We just kind of took them at their word. But we do get into that in book 4. And we do begin to see the costs of over expenditure of energy. What happens when you exhaust your source? So I think that's pretty cool. It's a little horrifying, but it's cool. I like horrifying things. So again, long-winded answer.
We have Matthew asking a question. I'm going to ask him to unmute his things and start his video. And he has a question about your thoughts on drakes and worms.
All right. We're going to get into some controversial topics.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, so first off, I'm going to apologize immediately in the fact that I haven't done a lot of reading in the last few years. I've been working overnight jobs, and reading just puts me to sleep. So I've only read the first book. So I don't know how, if you do get into this with future books, but we know you're feeling on Wyverns and Dragons. But I was also, because this is actually something that came up recently with the fact that I actually am off of work now. Going to be moving to a day shift in a different job, which is a good thing. So I've started reading again, and one of the first things I read was just a short thing, Tolkien's Children of Húrin, which has Glaurung, which is a fire drake, but not necessarily a dragon, even though he's called the father of dragons. But this idea that there are other types in the world, if they do fit within your world, how you would see them, because like there's fire drakes and then there's cold drakes, the drakes that are just there for sheer brunt force and all that, and the worms that can also like dig underground and things like that. Do those fit in your world at all, or do they kind of just don't exist, or just in general what you like of or don't like about those?
Gotcha. So first off, I'm going to qualify the Tolkien statement. He actually, in his writing, uses drake as a synonym for dragon. So like Smaug is a fire drake from the north. However, in Tolkien's personal depictions of Smaug, you can clearly see he's drawn Smaug as a traditional Western dragon with 6 limbs, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 wings. So Tolkien clearly knew his stuff. He knew what a dragon was. And he just used the term drake to describe a dragon, which is fine. I've seen that done in a lot of fantasy, actually. I mean, maybe not a lot, but it's common enough to be like, yeah, I can get it. They're like, you can use drake to describe a male dragon, 6-limbed dragon, or a drake could be actually a wingless dragon. So I've seen drake used to describe young dragons whose wings haven't sprouted yet, or just like this kind of draconid creature running around on the ground, no wings, which leads into your next point of, do these other creatures, which are in the dragon family, let's say, like, do they figure into this world? And the answer is yes, they do. In book 2, I throw some shade at Wyverns, actually. I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but you probably not because you haven't read it. But, and this is not spoilery, it's just like, we have a point of view chapter from Thorion, and he's like looking at the skies, and he's like, where are all the other great beasts of the skies that were around in the Age of the Dragons? Like, even the less cool beasts like wyverns. So it's like, it's a little in-joke for me. So wyverns did canonically at one point exist in this world, and in other places outside of Elentria, they still might. In Elentria, a kind of catastrophic event happened in the seventh age, which is the Elentrians went nuts, and they were like, we view other wielding creatures, specifically animals, who we view as not as cool as humans, we view them as threats, and we're going to eliminate them. So griffins, wyverns, all kind of other creatures that are actually very powerful and that humans would have viewed as direct threats, got eliminated from Elentria. So this was a dark moment in Elentrian history, but it kind of explains why there is more of an imbalance and why there is a lack of apparent magical biodiversity. That's why there's only a council of 9. There's only the 9 wielding races of Elentria represented, as opposed to like billions of them. Because there are plenty of intelligent creatures like griffins. I don't know about wyverns so much. I don't know how intelligent they are. Canonically, they're not. They're not, and not even in this series, but like physiologically, the difference between dragons and wyverns. Wyverns are smaller. They're less intelligent. They don't have capabilities of speech. They don't actually breathe fire. They have been known to sometimes spit acid, and in other cases, maybe weirder stuff like blood. But you know, that's like medieval scholar heraldry. Like we know this. In terms of worms, I would say they are in the Draconid family. Same thing with drakes. If you want to classify drakes as not being young dragons or a synonym for dragons, if they want to be their own thing, in the general world of draconic knowledge. Definitely they're all related, but on the taxonomic classification system, it's not like they wouldn't even share a genus, right? Because you'd have to go up like to the order to find a commonality, the Draconid order, and then you branch off based on physiological differences to differentiate between physiologically, if you actually want to classify these creatures, the difference between a dragon and a wyvern is pretty massive. Like, one has more limbs, you know? So that I can actually see being, I've been more of a stickler on this in the past, and say that they share a family. So like the order is, let's say, Draconid, the family is whatever you want to call it, and then you branch off into wyvern, genus and species, dragon, genus and species. So that's the commonality between them. So they're for sure cousins. Worms are obviously without limbs. It would be even greater difference, but absolutely share a common ancestor and would be in the Draconid family. But you'd have to go back up to the order. So I guess that was maybe more scientific of an explanation than you wanted, but hopefully it was an answer. So also, I want to clarify.
Perfect, and that was actually exactly what I was looking for.
Sick. I do want to clarify one point, which is obviously people think that I have something inherently against wyverns, and that's not entirely true. Like, obviously wyverns are awesome, and the only problem I have with them is that something that is so clearly needs to be a dragon is very often misrepresented by Hollywood as a wyvern. So this is draconic erasure, and this is what I object to. So it's society's fault. I got nothing against wyverns. I like wyverns. Dragons are obviously better, but I like them both. I just like dragons more, and I hate society. Society is the criminal here. Most specifically Hollywood. I think we really have Hollywood to blame for all of this.
Great, thank you, Matthew. How about what's with the sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things here at once.
Okay.
Well, it's at the very beginning, the introduction to Dragon Speaker.
Yeah.
You use the manticore.
Yeah.
Instead of a dragon or a worm or a lesser type bordering on dragon. Why a manticore at the beginning?
Well, specifically, why not a dragon? Because if Necrovar had actually managed to kill a dragon and gotten to the point where he can turn it into a shadow beast, we've learned throughout the series, even in book 1, a shadow beast trades its soul to Necrovar in exchange for a second chance at life. So he will reanimate a dead creature. He will take that creature's soul. In exchange, he will gift. I use that term very loosely because it's not really a gift. Necrovar is the puppet master. He is in charge. He will gift some of his magic to the shadow beast. And it might be as simple as basically he allows the shadow beast to retain whatever magical type of power that creature was initially able to wield. So like if you are a griffin and you died and Necrovar got your soul, and he would just be like, all right, you belong to me now, you can keep your magic. Griffin gets reanimated with air magic, but because it's tainted by Necrovar's power, it now becomes necromagic. That's like the catch-all term for any magic that has been poisoned by Necrovar's touch. And of course, the griffin is not its own creature anymore. It belongs to Necrovar. He erases all aspects of its personality. It becomes like this mindless demon slave committed to him. So if he were ever to actually have successfully gotten an entire dragon soul, he would basically have like been able to win his war, ostensibly, in the Second Age. So it's very important that he was never able, even up until this point, he was never able to successfully obtain a draconic soul, including Thorion. So this is a spoiler, actually, Matt, and anyone who hasn't read book 2. So if you want to mute real quick, this is an official spoiler alert. If you like spoilers, stick around. But the main plot line, one of the central plot lines, the central plot line of book 2 is Necrovar has infected Thorion with Darksalm. He is going to try to use that to forcibly obtain Thorion's soul. They're struggling to find a way to save Thorion's life. It's just not possible. So ultimately, he resorts to this very dangerous exorcism spell, and he splits his soul, and he hides the untainted half. Where did he hide it? We don't know. We kind of know. Or do we? We'll get into that a little bit in later books. We touch on it briefly, very briefly in book 4, but it's going to be mostly covered in book 5. And this prevents Necrovar from then having a draconic soul that he can wield. So he can't utilize Thorion's magic because it's not complete. So he's thwarted. So very important. And that's why I chose Manticore. And also, I like Manticores. I really was shook when I realized that a lot of people don't actually know what a Manticore is. So that's on me, I guess. But but Gruge is an interesting specimen. He's a little secret favorite of mine. And he is also a Manticore. Fortunately, it has the benefit of like not being another fantasy cliche. So if I had done something that you usually see in all kind of fantasy, then that would have been like kind of run of the mill. But a Manticore, you don't really see that ever. So I was like, cool, Bruce, you're going to be unique.
So how did you get into dragons in general? Not just to write your stories, but way back when?
Back in the day, right.
What drew you to dragons and just learning all about them to the point where you get the genus and the order and the species, and then that leads you to writing your novels?
Right. So we were going into this a little bit before we started the official recording. So I'm going to just do a quick recap for the people who weren't present during that discussion. But when I was very young, pre-K age, I was very invested in dinosaurs. I was super into dinosaurs. And I knew all the different genus and species of dinosaurs. I knew their official names. I knew like how to pronounce them. I would correct people when they tried to read dinosaur books to me and say, no, it's pronounced this way, Pachycephalosaurus. And so then when I got a little older, I think the jump to dragons was natural, because what is a dragon except like a way cooler dinosaur? But also at the same time, I'm an only child, but I had an older cousin who right around this age was going through a dragon phase. And she really liked dragons, and she was an artist, so she would always draw dragons. She drew like purple dragons. And me being a younger kid looking up to her, I got into the same phase. And so I latched onto dragons, and then she grew out of it and I never did. So it was fated, it was meant to be. And I loved what dragons represented to me personally, because I always loved fantasy and magic. And of course, and this is kind of a trope, it's a cliche now, but like when you think of a fantasy story, one of the first things you think of in terms of defining the genre is dragons. And previously it was like evil dragons, the knight in shining armor goes out and defeats a dragon. Okay. And that was fine for a while. And I think actually Tolkien was one of the people who revolutionized the idea of dragons as characters, as their own beings with agency and purpose, and not all of them have to be bad. So as time marched on and the fantasy genre became more nuanced and varied, we started seeing more dragons be cool characters and be good guy characters and have their own stories and stuff like that. And we see a lot of that nowadays, more so in books than movies still. But we are seeing it now. We're seeing it with Wings of Fire. I just read a book called Tooth and Claw, which is basically Jane Austen meets dragons. It's like a Jane Austen, it's like a Pride and Prejudice story, but everybody is a dragon. Every character is a dragon. And I really liked it. And Temeraire, the Temeraire series, Temeraire is not the main character, but he is a very well-depicted dragon. And those, of course, were the kind of stories that I was drawn to, is where the dragons are cool and good and they're powerful and they do great things and they're super magic. And if you want like a really powerful magical friend, you go to the dragon. So this was always just like my personal little escape, my personal little fantasy is like, what's the best thing that could possibly happen to you in your life? It's like you meet a dragon. And people used to ask me, would you rather have a dragon friend or be a dragon? And I said, that's easy. That's like asking somebody if they would rather have an awesome friend or be awesome. Obviously, you would always choose to be awesome yourself. So like, I would rather be a dragon. I mean, I would rather have both. I would rather be a dragon and also have like several dragon friends and be a very popular dragon. But like, I definitely would be a dragon. No question in my mind. Like, so OP. So that
Cool.
is, yeah.
So other than not only are you a prolific writer, but you're also a movie maker.
Retired.
And retired, and song, what do you call it? Not musician, songwriter.
Yes.
Give us a little history about your, oh, hang on just a second here before that. Let me admit Diane Kane.
Oh, cool. Very nice.
Hi, Diane. We got you all muted, so if you want to join in the chat.
Welcome, Diane.
Hi, Diane. If you want to join in the chat, and just go ahead and type your message there. We'll bring you up, and you can ask Elana your question or your comment. Right now, I'm asking, Elana's not only a prolific writer, but also a former movie maker and a songwriter. And let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So once upon a time, in what seems now like quite a different life, I was very into filmmaking. And real filmmakers always have the one movie they point to, and they're like, that's the movie that made me want to make movies. And for most people, it's something, like one of those boring old classics. For me, it was the first Lord of the Rings movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. I was still fairly young when they came, and impressionable when they came out. And obviously, this was like everything I ever wanted in my life was a Lord of the Rings movie. I would always spend more time in Middle-earth. But it was just so well done. And you rarely saw that in fantasy. Like the fantasy entertainment, Hollywood entertainment that we were offered was all stuff like Dragonheart was like the one standout fantastic piece. But apart from that, it was all these kind of like B-movie level things, and the dragons were not nice, and you had Reign of Fire, which was like, what is that? They're wyverns and they're evil, and the humans kill them? Are you kidding me? They're massive and they shoot fire. Like, and they outnumber you. There's no way you would win. It's very unrealistic. But anyway, I digress. In terms of having a good fantasy film, dragons not even factored into it, but just a good fantasy film. This was like kind of one of the first that we had. So I loved it, and not even really understanding, like from a cinematic standpoint, how groundbreaking it was in terms of cinematography, special effects, visual effects, all that kind of stuff. And it was groundbreaking. Like they made technology that allowed the genre to flourish, and building on that technology, like Weta Digital, which is Peter Jackson's visual effects company, they pioneered a lot of the technology that now you see in all your favorite films, in like Star Wars and stuff like that, like just visual effects. But they pioneered it, and having done it like in the year 2000, it's insane. Like I don't know how. I do know how. It was like many hours in this render farm of people just working tirelessly to the bone. But so that's the film that made me want to make movies. And unfortunately for me, I wanted to make movies just like that one, and those cost several $100 million, which I don't have. So I was constantly kind of hamstrung by my own designers in the film industry, and I constantly, like when I was in high school, I made my first trilogy of feature-length films. It's called Draconis Olim. And film one I did in 2005. It was Draconis Olim, The Secret of the Dragon's Crystal. And if you imagine, like X-Men meets Aragon meets, like Lord of the Rings meets, and I hate having to use this analogy, but meets Harry Potter. If you can imagine something like that, that's what it was. And it was a bunch of like 14-year-olds running around the woods in capes. But then I made two more after that, and it was like this epic trilogy, and we loved it. And then I went to college, and then I was not very enamored of college. I was always a terrible student, and I didn't like it. So I pieced out from there, and I came back, and I said, I'm going to start making movies. And the first real feature I made was back in 2000. I mean, I did it in 2009, started in 2009 and came out in 2010. It was originally titled Director's Cut, and it was a semi-autobiographical comedy of errors about a group of young filmmakers who are trying to make a movie. But the movie they want to make is about the zombie cannibal vampire pirate queen who teleports to Earth and uses her army of space dragons to enslave the entire human population. So it took like every bad thing that had ever happened to me on any of my film sets and just rolled it into one comedy. And it did pretty well for itself, and gave me perhaps an inflated idea of what I might be capable of in the future. So it ran the festival circuit and got into like 15 festivals worldwide. It won 4 awards. And like right after that, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a $5 million movie, and it's gonna be a sci-fi action and it's going to launch my career. And so, you know, here I am. What year is it? I don't know. 15 years later, whatever. 10 years. I don't know. I can't do math. I'm here several years later, and obviously that project has not yet come to fruition. It is languishing in what we like to call development hell. So, and it probably will never, at this point, come to fruition, which is fine because now I'm focusing on the writing. And that's eventually why I gravitated away from the film industry and back to writing, is because the stories I want to tell, I can't tell them through the film medium. It's just not feasible. I can do a decent job. You know, you kind of saw like the book trailer, you know, I did that pretty much single-handedly, entirely single-handedly, I would actually say, in terms of producing it. And it's good for what it's worth, you know, but it's no Lord of the Rings. And so if I want to tell the stories that are in my heart, film is just not the appropriate medium for me. And but books are, because if I hone my craft and really work on it and you know, work hard every day to be the best writer I can possibly be, then I can use my words to craft the world I want to share, and to share visions of that world with other people. So that is the story of how we kind of found our way back to the original passion, because I was always a writer. I wrote my first novel at the age of 5. And I mean, by write, I mean like I harassed my father while he was trying to work at the computer in the basement, and I dictated words to him, and he was my secretary, and he transcribed my nonsense into written words. But it was when I was 5 years old, and it was about a girl and a dragon going on a quest. So, you know, 2 decades later, nothing changed. But so I always loved writing, and then I really got into film because I saw like how magical it was. You can really like take Lord of the Rings, for example, and now basically any major kind of sci-fi fantasy film, like there's so much magic going on. Like just look at the Star Wars. However you feel about the Rise of Skywalker, I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but however you feel about it, the visual effects were fantastic, and it's super magic-y, like all the Star Wars are, and you know, and all of the like so there's like so much magic that you can achieve with cinema nowadays, and I would love to be part of that world again. Realistically, however, it's probably not going to happen unless people buy 10 million copies of my books and Hollywood approaches me and they say, we want to give you a 5-movie deal. And I say, denied unless I'm the director and the producer. And they say, you drive a hard bargain, but okay. And I say, sick. And then we make the magic happen.
Well, where some of the magic has happened is that 30-second clip we showed at the beginning. For those of you who missed that, you can always go on YouTube or Elana's Facebook page there and see there's a 30 seconds. There's a couple different ones for your trailers for your book that you produced and you directed and even started, didn't you? Weren't you in the videos?
Well, I voiced Shiv Nath.
Right.
And I play, I have like a few other cameos, which like nobody knows about. So there's a shot where like a shadow man is getting knifed in the back and like dies and explodes, and that's me. Yep. So yeah, and actually you can go on the Elentria website as well, and you can view the full 2-minute version. And actually, like the more I talk about this, and I'm kind of back on a kick of like, I want to do some After Effects works. It's always a terrible idea when I get that into my head, but the desire has come upon me. The yearning has come upon me. So what I really would love to do actually is maybe and even since 2015, which is when I first produced that trailer, like now, my best friend has appropriately a red dragon camera, which is like industry standard. He's got all kinds of studio lighting. I have a green screen set up. So if I really wanted to, I could redo the trailer. I could do trailers for the other books if I really wanted to punish myself. And, you know, and they would be quantifiably better because 5 years have passed since then. Now, is it really going to happen? I don't know. There's probably better ways for me to spend my time, especially because, and I wanted to get into this actually. I wanted to kind of take a census from you guys. I am considering, and I stress considering, but at this point it's probably a done deal. I just have to kind of come to terms with the fact that I'm gonna have to spend a lot of money. Considering giving the books a facelift and getting new covers for all of them. And I found like a typo. I found a typo the other day. And so this made me want to burn everything down and start from scratch. So I'm like, I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna make new additions, I'm gonna make new covers. I'm gonna update all the text, I'm gonna take out that typo. All 5 books. So it would really be like a redesign, and I would get all 5 covers done/redone in a new style. Because one of the pieces of feedback that I've gotten over the years about the books is they look a little middle grade, and that is valid. You know, so they're really solidly young adult, especially as we get later in the series and the characters themselves are a little older and they're dealing with more adult issues and a lot more violent issues and some romantic issues. So I really don't want it to read like middle grade. I would like it to read, oh no, I just folded this, oh well. I would like it to read like solidly young adult. So I'm really like, I would love to hear from readers, like, what are some of your favorite book covers? And what are some of your favorite book styles? In terms of, and I'm more concerned really with like making it, people are like, you know, you should follow the trends, and the trends are X, Y, and Z, and the trends are like, you see this kind of trend of like photo manipulation, photorealism, photo manipulation on a lot of specifically young adult, but a lot of fantasy covers. And I have personally never liked that as much as I like a painted cover. But what do I know? You know? So I would really like love to hear from readers what your favorite styles are, whether you want something that's similar to this, but, you know, more detailed, a full painted cover. Like actual, you know, painted fantasy art, full on like dragons in the sky and people on the ground and like crazy shading and lens flares and all that fun stuff. Whether you prefer something a little bit more graphic designy, that is a big current trend now that we see in books. Whether you like the style of, and I think it's more for like older, like adult fantasy, but they have this style of just big, like the title takes up the whole book, and then there's minimal, like maybe some border work or maybe some like very basic background art, but it's like it's all about the title. Or you have, you know, stuff like that. So I'm like really interested to hear what other people like, and actually what you, Chris, like what kind of things draw your eye as a bookseller.
I like your new cover art for the new book, or at least the demo one that you had posted.
Oh, Dragon War?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
the new one that's coming out. I really like that. Before I go on though, there's something I kind of wanted to circle back to real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
About the blending of your writing and your producing and film and stuff. This is kind of going off script a little bit. This wasn't, but this makes me smile every time I see it. So give me just 2 seconds here to bring this up.
Oh. I know it's
sorry,
coming.
I gotta do it. This is a music video, directed, produced, written, and sang by Elana. And give me just a second here, get this up here. And let's hope you enjoy this. It's a few minutes long, but I think everybody's going to enjoy this. This is her quarantine video.
If you are looking for ideas for things to do in quarantine, I have inspiration that can help avoid the many boring things. Here are some ideas for projects that will keep you entertained, so everyone who's stuck in isolation won't all go insane. While flattening the curve, may I suggest you stay at home and read, or play a game, or sing a song, or tend your mini garden seeds. If you prefer to try and be industrious, then that's fine too. Vacuuming and dishwashing are both fun things that you can do. Perhaps you'd like to write a book or learn to play the saxophone. Perhaps you'd like to start to ride a unicycle on your own. Look in the refrigerator, find yourself a tasty treat, even though you know you don't have anything that's fit to eat. Next, go on social media to check your friends and stalk your foes. Mix your own nail polish and then paint your fingers and your toes. Dress up just for fun so you can host a private fashion show. Then point your speakers out the window just to test how loud they go. Point your speakers out the window just to test how loud they go. Support your local businesses by ordering a bunch of food. Eating your entire body weight in pizza is a mood. Treat yourself by pouring out a nice tequila shot or four so you can more appreciate the tiles on your bathroom floor. Boil all your pots inside a bigger pot to disinfect. Color code your plants and put their names into your Rolodex. Befriend your household spiders and discuss with them philosophy. Stare into the void and ask yourself to be or not to be. Stare into the void and ask yourself to be or not to be. By now it's time to clean again, so scrub the germs and then move on to researching amusing ways to hack the Russian Pentagon. Organize your healing crystals, burn some incense for self-care, then ruin all your mental health progress by shaving off your hair. Pour yourself some more tequila shots and share them with your steak. You may as well indulge because the world is doomed to its dark fate. Check the fridge again to just make sure that there is nothing new. Thank God that you can fall back on your first grade quirk of eating glue. Clean again obsessively and wash your hands with lots of soap. Pretend your cat has coronated you as the new feline pope. Arrange some pretty candles in a pattern in the dining room, then chant an incantation to invoke a demon for your doom. Realize you made a big mistake with that, but don't you fret, you latch onto the demon as your friend because you're desperate for any sort of interaction you can get. You need some help since quarantine has utterly destroyed your brain and sense of self. Sleep off the tequila and awaken in the dead of night. Panic, run around the house and give your demon friend a fright. Meditate to calm yourself and check the fridge one final time before you throw a fit and lock yourself away to have a cry. It's been 11 days since you last saw another human face. It might be for the best because you've turned into a huge disgrace. But just remember, time does not exist beyond the human mind. So maybe it's okay for you to venture forth and go outside. Forget it, pal! Your demon screams reminding you of what's at stake. To save humanity, your mission simply is to stay in place. Distance yourself socially to help your family and friends. Will get through this alone and party with each other when it ends. Distance yourself socially to help your family and friends. Will get through this alone and party with each other when it ends. Reluctantly acknowledge that your demon has a valid point, so just relax and take a nap and roll yourself a massive joint. You'll survive your quarantine, you're independent, fierce, and strong, and now you have some great ideas to help you from this little song!
Oh boy. Good times. Yeah, that is
There you go.
That's one of the many things I did during my quarantine sabbatical. Which I mean, obviously, like, this is a terrible thing that has happened to the world, but I really like being in quarantine. It really agrees with me. Like, I was so productive. I wrote a 40,000 word thing back in April as part of like a Camp NaNoWriMo thing. It was completely unrelated. It was actually called The Villain's Guide to Surviving the Apocalypse. How to make money and profit at the end of the world. Thank you. I see some chats. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Obviously I made that video. I made another music video, which was just something that like I had wanted to make that song for ages, and I would just never get around to it. And all of a sudden I had time, so I made it.
And don't forget the blooper reels.
There were always blooper reels. Very embarrassing, very fun blooper reels. Chris brought this up to me again the other day, he's like, are you making any more? I have actually recorded one other song, which will require, in terms of production, it will require actually like research and After Effects work. And that's why I've been dragging my feet on it. But now that the novella is done, and now that book 4 is done, and now that I'm just kind of, well, I'm gonna have to edit the novella a lot, but in terms of book 4, which is the bigger project, I'm just waiting on beta reader feedback. So, so now I can maybe focus on doing some non-writing things. And then I was inspired actually after our chat, Chris, because I had this little thing that I used to sing to myself, ironically, on movie sets, because you would always have like a craft service table filled with unimaginable, ungodly amounts of unhealthy food. And what is there to do between takes except to stuff your face at crafty? So I used to sing to myself, you know, I'll start my diet tomorrow, shed the quarantine weight off tomorrow. Obviously, like, quarantine wasn't in the original. It was just like, I'll start my diet tomorrow. But that seems like a real quarantine kind of thing to do. So I'm gonna maybe, no promises, but I wrote 2 stanzas, and they're kind of funny. So now I'm committed. And it would be easy to produce this one as opposed to the other one, because I could just do the same nonsense that I did for the creation you just witnessed.
There is another one though too. You got to look it up. The first, that was your second one, right?
That was my first one.
That was the first one. Okay, so there is another one though that has to do with you rolling around on a car and scrambling in the mud and falling off of trees. So
it is actually an original song composed by me, written by me, called "Every Choice I've Ever Made Has Been the Wrong One." It's a little not safe for work, but it has the you know, the usual hallmark Mugdan manic energy. So enjoyable for what it's worth. Hopefully.
So back to the cover thing. We have a few comments here.
Yes.
That Tim says he likes the painted covers, but could never afford one. He has an example to show if you're curious. Yeah, we'll take a look at that in just a second. We'll have you hold it up here. Let's see. Diane says, I don't like big titles. She likes photos.
Great.
Like I say, I like the cover if you have it and able to hold it up or whatever. If not, go to her Facebook page there and see. No, the new one.
Oh,
for the 4th book.
Where is it?
So that's you can see it. You can find it on her Facebook page. She posted on the Shadow War Saga Facebook page.
Correct.
Really cool. Kind of standing on a balcony with you turning around, your sword in her hand, and the dragon in the background, and a castle type thing. And
oh, you're talking about the one yeah, okay. So you're talking about the more recent one.
yes.
Okay, so there were 2. I got you. All right, yeah, that one is better than the original one. The original mock-up, which I sent you, is the one where it's just a silhouette of Carria, and she's very far away. This one is very Carria-centric, and it was really only supposed to be, it's just like a social media nonsense thing, so that I could attract beta readers. And it worked, I guess, for what it was worth, because I got like 60 people interested. And I think that did have something to do with the graphic. Now, in terms of feasibility, like, I don't know if I can really use that one. It's photoshopped, and obviously it's like all of the images are from royalty-free sites. So in terms of rights, and it's my face, so like I for sure could use it. However, then I would have to find ways of making 4 other covers in a similar style, which is probably not likely to happen. And also, I don't know if I really want to plaster my face on an actual printed book. I don't know about that. It's great for when I just need to put something on like social media, because, well, also with quarantine in effect, like I can't do a photo shoot with anybody else. but I can definitely use my face, and that's super easy. Photoshop is great. Love it. Makes me look good. I just, you know, and I'm not averse to the idea of like a photo manipulation piece like that, in that style. But again, it has to be something like I would need to contract a legitimate artist and get 5 covers in all the same style. And whether that's in painted or in photo manipulation or in something else entirely, I think a lot of people who enjoy fantasy, this is what I'm kind of hearing, is that they like the painted covers. They like the full painted covers, which is great because those are the kind of covers that I've always been most drawn to. And if I like really go through with this, I would be doing some research. And I've actually started it already, which I think means I'm doomed. Means it's gonna happen. It's a foregone conclusion now because I've like mentally committed to it. So, yay, more work for me.
So Tim, do you want to hold up your cover there?
Yeah, please.
Take a look. Oops, hang
All
on.
right, can you guys hear me now?
There we go.
All right, sorry. For some reason, it makes me unmute video and audio separately, and I always kind of bug it up. So anyways, John Scalzi is one of my favorite science fiction authors, and he has the Old Man Tor series, and he did them all through Tor, and they kind of have the like kind of blurry painted look to them. I don't know if the glare looks kind of...
I'm actually going to look it up. It goes
but yeah, so every book has a similar feel in the Old Man Tor series, which you have, if you haven't read, I highly recommend if you guys like space-based sci-fi.
We got some dreadnoughts on these covers, I see.
Yeah, so these are the type of covers I would love to do someday, but you know, these are legit painted by a painter, custom for you, and I don't have that bankroll available right now. So that's why all my covers have been photo manipulated. Aside from my very first one.
I like those covers, for the record.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, and I know what you are talking about in terms of like bankrolling it, because I did reach out to one service, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm thinking of getting 5 covers, and like, what would you do? Are you gonna like, would you offer any deals? And they were like, yeah, we offer a deal of $500 per cover after beyond book 3. And I was like,
Is that painted though?
yeah, it would be painted. And then there was like additional design title fees and stuff like that. So, which I think is probably...
Because that actually doesn't sound bad.
Yeah, it actually doesn't when I think about it. And it's like, it's a full spread. So it would be front and back.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you think about how many hours they spend to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I am 100% on board with paying artists for their art. No question about it.
But you're also going to put food on your table.
Well, I mean, I've actually been on my snake is sick diet. So I have like been kind of going without and saving up because unfortunately my scale baby is ill, and the treatments are not cheap. So, and we never know what's going to happen. So it's the kind of unfortunate situation where like she could be fine one day and she could be then developed a respiratory illness the next day, you know, and then that's not an easy thing to fix, and that's serious for a snake. It could lead to like they could die from that. Yeah. So, you know, it's just like a question of being careful, being cautious, but at the same time, at some point in a book's lifespan, it does need a facelift. And something to like kickstart it, revitalize, you know, give it a second life, give it a second wind. So, you know, that's kind of what the whole idea of this would be. And maybe I would do a little bit of editing for the interior text, and maybe I'd like cut them down by a few pages, or maybe I would add more pages in. That's probably more likely, but you never know. Got to give myself a chance.
Yep.
So you were asking about the, as far as the bookseller side, the biggest thing for us is the cover needs to tell the story. It needs to be eye-catching, first of all.
Right.
Because you tend to judge a book by its cover sometimes. And that's unfortunate because we've had quite a few books come through here that are great texts, great stories, but the cover just doesn't draw people to it.
Right.
You know, a red and white cover with like supposed to be like little drips of blood and just red lettering that turns into white lettering on the opposing colors. It just doesn't tell the story. As to where, well, like Tim's book, it's got the dragons right out there on the cover. It tells you what the story is about. Very eye-catching. Your book's very colorful.
Yeah.
And I really love the fineness, though, of that beta cover there for the fourth book.
Thank you.
But you know, they do, the first three do read a little bit more of the younger end of the young adult, even though the story itself is perfect for adults as well. But something that kind of tells a little bit about the story. There is one fantastic cover that we have here. As I Lay Dying, I wish I could remember what it was, but it's got handcuffs and chains, and it's a thriller. Knives and cut upper things, you know, just you can definitely tell what this story is going to be.
Well, that's the other option. That's like and you do see this in, I think actually every genre is you have author series, if there is one, title, and then kind of in the middle of it all you have like an icon or a graphic that is representative of something that happens in the story. So probably the first example of this that comes to my mind is like the Shatterby series. You got like all the text, and it's not overbearing, it's just there, and then you have the eyes in the center. So that's another like style of cover work, which I am not necessarily averse to. And technically, I mean, this one's fully painted, but that's kind of what's going on here is you've got the text and then you've got like dragon iconography. It's just like and that is a trend in YA currently. I just don't know, do I have graphics that would, depict something that's appropriate for each book? I can't actually think of anything. The one thing I can think of is a sword, and that's been done to death, so I'm hesitant to proceed in that direction. The other thing is a spider, and yet we don't really get into that until book 4, so it like kind of wouldn't work. And I'd rather just have dragons on every cover. I would rather, like, if you imagine the Inheritance Cycle books and how Paolini had a different dragon on every cover. And it was a little bit spoilery because Saphira was supposed to be the last dragon, but then you get a different red dragon on Eldest, and you get a gold dragon, like, who's this gold dragon, on, what's the third one, Brissinger. And then I was always expected, I'm gonna say it wrong, Shuriken, the black dragon, the king's black dragon. I was always expecting him to come on the next cover because, like, that's the only other dragon. But then there kept being different dragons. So it was always a little spoilery. I was like, who's this? Who's that? What's going on? Like, I know there's another dragon coming, so it, like, ruined the surprise a little bit. That being said, it's all about dragons. So I don't mind, like, putting spoilery dragons on each cover.
That's kind of like Anne McCaffrey's series, especially the Dragon Riders of Pern initial series. There you had the white dragon being the third in the trilogy. You got this big white dragon that somebody's riding, and the Dragon Riders of Pern, you see people riding dragons and stuff. So,
of course, but that you expect. You expect there to be a lot of dragons.
Yep.
Whereas in this story, ostensibly there are none. There's like Shivnath, Thorion. That's it.
So we're almost out of time. But, it's okay. We're not going to get cut off if we go over a little bit. But I did, if you want, give you an opportunity to read a little bit from your fourth book.
Oh yeah, all right.
Or even your first one, whichever you'd like to do. Take a few minutes and do that. And then if Lisa, she's one of your beta readers for the fourth book,
Some.
just go ahead and put it in the chat there if you'd like to, if you've had a chance to read it or some of it, give us your thoughts of that, and we'll pull you up and you can give Elena some of your initial thoughts on it. But let's go ahead and if Elena wants to read a little portion of her story.
I could certainly try, and of course
You don't
now,
have to do the voices if you don't
now
want
I'm
to.
doing it after an hour and a half of chatting, so I'm gonna do a little bit of water, but
Well, let's do this
I'll
first
leave it
then.
up to you guys.
Lisa, do you want to chime in and here, let me have you unmute and bring you up here.
Yeah,
Maybe.
like met.
There we go.
Hey, there she is. Hi, Lisa.
Am I here?
You
You're
are.
here.
You are.
Hey, I was trying to figure out the whole time. This is the first time I'm using Zoom, so I apologize.
This is the second time I'm using Zoom, so I feel your pain. I'm like, I don't want to touch anything. I don't want to touch anything because I feel like I got homeostasis right now, and anything I do will ruin it.
Yeah, but I loved that fourth book.
Thank you.
It took me into that world.
I am very glad to hear that. I mean, obviously I finished book 3 just last year. And part of the process of growth for me as a writer was getting more into beta readers, and gathering all that feedback. But even between then and now, the finishment, whatever, I'm a writer, it's fine. The finishment of book 3 and me writing book 4, I just had like so many experiences that kind of opened my eyes to new things I could do, better things I could do, better ways to bring the reader into the world and into the mind of the character. I have been in the query trenches recently, and I got some agent feedback about things I do as a writer, which I wasn't even like really fully aware of. I thought this is my voice, this is my style. And she was like, no, actually it's bad. And I was like,
Oh, no.
and I will not do it anymore. But it's the kind of thing where like now, once you know the rules, you can break them. So now that I'm like aware of it, I can kind of consciously say, this is head hopping. Like the narrator wouldn't really know this from this person's point of view, it's head hopping. But there are certain instances where I was like, it just works better. And I'm gonna go ahead and be lazy and I'm gonna do it. And it's fine. I mean, so it's that kind of thing. But yeah, I appreciate your feedback and you saying that, because this project was actually, I was very concerned going into it. So all 5 books have technically been written, but they were also written in, like the early 2000s. So,
Okay.
so this one in particular, like obviously Dragon Speaker I had been working on for like years and years. And so it was in a better, more current shape when it got published. Dragon Child I had written the least of. And so that was like much more current. Dragon Blood I had finished. It was the first book I'd ever finished back in 2008. But it required me to like rewrite it all. And not all. Like actually that's a very important distinction between Dragon Blood and book 4 Dragon War, is that Dragon Blood, I also did a lot of editing over the years, and so like most of it was end up being salvageable. Dragon War, on the other hand, I hadn't really touched since, when did I go to France? Let me think about that. 2009. So it was like 10 years undusting this thing. And it was my voice from 10 years ago. And that was just a bad voice. So I was like,
I don't think so.
Well, you say that, but I literally rewrote the entire book. And I changed like there are some artifacts of the original text, the '09 text, some, but most of it is like new. So it was kind of me starting from scratch, which mentally was a problem for me. I was like very cranky about that because it was me throwing out essentially 160,000 words, and that felt like a waste. That being said, I did a lot of work on it, and I angsted over it a lot, and I was like, what if I did this instead? And so I actually came up with like an outline. I came up actually with 4 outlines, and I kept like rewriting the outline in my head of like, what if this happened? What if I did that? And like, there were a lot of storylines I had to follow. You obviously read the books.
I could tell. Yeah, there was a lot to follow, but
Yeah.
you did a wonderful job of integrating them all together.
Thank you. So
You
that
know,
was like a huge concern of mine.
yeah, no, you did a good job, and you could tell that there was excerpts that brought you back to your first and second book, and everything just melded together terrifically. And I cannot wait for number 4 or I've read 4, but 5 to come out in your little novella.
Ugh.
It seems like I get this picture in my head where it's like I almost wish I could live in those books.
I love it. That's all I ever wanted.
So Lisa,
Yeah.
who was your favorite character?
Oh, K-Rare, for sure.
Sure.
Definitely. And then Valerian also was a very interesting character also. He in my mind was more like the father figure, and there was a lot of depth in what he had done and how he created his whole, I don't want to give anything away, but how he created his whole impact on the whole story.
Yes. So, this is also a spoiler for anyone who hasn't read books 2 through 4. So, sorry about it, but we'll get into it a little bit. You could choose to mute if you would like.
No.
So Valerian is painted in earlier books as like we only know one version of history, and it's the version written by the Wyverns, and it's this kind of like halcyon version of what happened, and he's presented as this great hero, who sacrificed everything to save Solaris. And as each book goes, as we go through the series, we uncover, of course, more of what he did, and so he becomes more of a morally gray area character. He's quite selfish, actually, in the reasons why he does what he does. And then this book, we finally get into his head a little bit, and we see it wasn't even really, and there's a lot of pathos and tragedy in there for sure, but a lot of it is also like whatever selfish reasons he had for the people he loved, protecting them, there was this other, even darker motivation of him, like, he just couldn't let it go. He became obsessed with the idea of, like, Valerian versus Necrovar, and he doesn't even fully understand it. And he allowed that to consume him. And you actually, I think in one of your emails, you were like, I know it's hard for the warrior to give up her quest. And that really like resonated with me. Actually, that was like a spear to my heart, because I was like, wow, like she read me, she got me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it is like, that's definitely, and I'm actually really like glad that you picked up on that in Valerian, because it's not like he dwells on it. He kind of doesn't even understand it. But that's like the same with me. I think a lot of artists do this. We have a goal. We have, the top of the mountain that we want to reach. And we just keep striving toward it. And at what cost is the ultimate question.
Well, there's stumbles, and you'll fall and you'll slide, but
I've been stumbling.
you keep going. Exactly. You just dig in those cleats and keep climbing that mountain, and you get to the top, and you know, it's just like the story just keeps developing. And I don't want to say anything, but I see more than book number 5.
Yeah,
You know,
actually-
it's like a whole world, a whole different world that you can just dive into, and you just live in it.
Well, that is, and it's also interesting that you bring that up because, you know, like I made this world and I like it. I think it's sick. You know, that's why I write, is because I really love it. And I want to share that with other people, find like, you know, other people who enjoy it. But so this series, whether it's, oh my God, whether it's 5 books or 6, I really hope it's going to be 5. But let's say it's 5. Let's say I can do it. So look, it's going to be 5 books of Carria's story, for sure. You know, but then I have like all of this history. I have the past 10 ages worth of history between the 2nd age and the 12th age. And I have a trilogy, which is probably going to be a quartet, whatever, planned for detailing what happens in the 2nd age in the Great War, which is where the original rivalry between Valerian and Necrovar arises, and we see, you know, Hellcryft and Beldine and Gokarion, and we follow that story. I have a standalone novella, which will probably end up being like 100,000 words, as a standalone, but it's going to be Shivnath's story, and that'll be interesting, super interesting.
So I can see this turning into a Robert Jordan Wheels of Time sort of, just kind of goes on and on and on. And
well, yes, it would be more like Pern, I think, because
okay.
what she does is she has blocks of stories. So like the first trilogy, Dragon Riders, and concluding with the White Dragon, like that's a unit. And then she's got another unit, like the Harper Hall, I guess, trilogy. And then she time hops all over the place. So she goes, you know, to the original colonists, the original settlers, Amora and Windblossom, and all of the, I don't remember their names. But anyway, like she follows them, and I had the name on the tip of my tongue, but now it's gone. Yep. You know, so it's this same universe, but spanning like thousands of years of time, and with characters who are telling their own stories.
Well, even
so
like
more of what
like Terry Brooks too. He had his original sort of Shannara series, and then he did blocks of sequels, and then he did blocks of prequels to bring it all up. And so
like prequels would be their own thing. And then I actually, for last year's National Novel Writing Month, I wrote a new, what I consider to be a standalone with series potential. Oh shoot, I should have put that in my queries. Rats. Okay, well, anyway. Rats. Oh. It's a standalone with series potential, and it takes place 500 years after the end of the Shadow War Saga. So, spoiler alert.
Something to look forward to.
Something to look forward to.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up.
Yeah.
But please check out her books, Elana A Mugdan, the Shadow War Saga series of 3 right now, available here. Book 4 will be available here come April. They're also available bookshop.org, all 3 of them. And then, of course, the 4th one too. And then, of course, there's always straight from Elana as well. And we're not going to mention the 4th, He Who Shall Not.
No, we don't. But, there are many options. Obviously, Freethinker's Corner, you want to go. If you can buy from them direct, that's obviously the best. But bookshop.org, if you guys don't know about that, that is basically like the indie up-and-comer competitor to the other
He Who Shall Not Be Named.
The other, yes, the website that shall not be named. So definitely check that one out. And also, we didn't get to me doing any reading, which at this point is probably all for the best. But the audiobook version of Dragon Speaker is out, and originally they have like a 90-day thing exclusive on Audible, but I think the 90 days are up. And so if that is true, then it will soon be on Libro FM.
Yay.
I hope. I gotta actually follow up with them about that. But the audiobook is out there.
I'll do my happy dance afterwards because nobody's going to want to see that. But when it's on
Okay.
Libro, I'll do my happy dance.
Yeah, that's one of the things I have to do is like follow up with the distributor and say, hey, is it going to other places and cool stuff?
Maybe we'll see that.
Be on the lookout for that. And there will be updates on my website and hopefully on Freethinker's website if Libro FM, if that connection happens.
Yep, that connection does happen with us. Just go to our website and you can connect direct to our page on Libro.
Awesome.
And believe me, she'll let me know when it's out there, and I will let you know when it's out there.
Yes, and thank you guys. Thank everybody so much for attending and for hanging out, talking about dragons.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you. We'll definitely do this again when your next book is out. If not soon.
Awesome.
Hopefully
Yes.
we'll be able to do it live.
I look forward to it.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.